Hi, today on the workbench we have a NuTone N2561 N2562 master station in avocado. And the avocado is a 70s color. You got avocado here and at the bottom, and the grill here in front of the speaker, instead of being black, and this area over here also, it's avocado, and it's sort of a flocked, kind of fuzzy, kind of something that they did in those days. I don't know what it is exactly, but you have to be careful because it will rub off and it's black underneath. This was sent in by a fella who purchased it recently. The brief story is he bought a house. The house was built around sometime between 1972 and 1974. It has a 2561-62 system in the house. The master station didn't work correctly according to him, and it was kind of beat up, I guess. And so he decided that he was going to replace it with another unit. He found this unit. I don't know where exactly. It could have possibly have been on eBay, and I think maybe I remember seeing it, but I'm not certain about that. And he got it, and he said that it was sold as new old stock. New old stock, also referred to as NOS, means that it's a brand new unit that's never been installed. Any of you who have watched any number of my videos about the topic of new old stock items know that I am always very skeptical. However, he assures me that he believes it was new old stock. It came in the original box with the original styrofoam ends and all the paperwork and all of that sort of stuff, so he doesn't think it was ever actually installed. And I will say that it is in very, very good condition for being a little more than 50 years old. So this unit was manufactured in January, February, March, April. This unit was manufactured in April of 1972, and it's a J chassis, and the date code is D, that's April, and 72, which is the year it was made. So it's towards the end of the production of these models, and because they went out of production and were discontinued at the end of 1974. He got it, unpacked it, installed it, which is only the big connector up here and the little connector over here, so it's like 10 minutes to put it in. And he turned it on, and it worked great. All his remote speakers worked, although they have switches and things that probably need to be cleaned, but it all played really nicely, and he was very happy with it. And that happiness lasted for approximately 10 hours. And after 10 hours, it now does this. Listen carefully. Big giant buzzing sound. We'll turn it off because we don't want it to die altogether. So he called me and was somewhat dismayed at the fact that it developed a problem after 10 hours because it was brand new. Never been installed, new old stock. And this is part of the conversation that I have with many people who contact me who, for whatever reason, don't want to or refuse to identify with the idea or recognize the fact that it's 50 years old. It may be never installed. Again, I am always skeptical, but it's not newly manufactured. It didn't roll off the assembly line in the last year. It rolled off the assembly line 50 years ago. And I don't care where it sat or what was done with it or not done with it or whatever it is, it's 50 years old. That is the overarching condition of units like this. The fellow that owns this, he asked me, what do you think is wrong with it? I said, well, it's got probably all the usual age-related failures that happen, even though I know you think it's brand new, but remember, it's 50 years old. So it's just going to need sort of the regular rebuild that happens to these. In some respects, you know, some parts of it, these lever switches, they're not bad. They're going to get cleaned a little bit. I expect the tuners should tune really well, and these controls, they feel pretty good. They'll get cleaned up a little bit just because it's here. There's just a variety of things that need to be replaced because even components that have never been used, never been used, when they sit on the shelf for 50 years, they fail. And the way they failed in this customer's case, where it played really well for 10 hours and then it developed the big background hum, it's exactly what I would expect to have happened because the components are at the end of their life. They're even at the end of their shelf life. even though if they never really have been used, there is a shelf life to everything. The shelf life is really, really, really long, but you have to factor in the age of the unit, the quality of the way components were manufactured 50 years ago, and all that sort of stuff. It's just to be expected. So if you buy something like this, and it's sold as new old stock, and in some cases maybe it really is, although you know how I feel about that, don't expect that you're going to get 30, 35 years of use out of it, because you're not. Things fail because they're old. That is the overarching problem with many sets. We have a classification for a lot of the repairs that we do, and they're classified as it has typical age-related failures, because as everything gets older, things fail, and that's what happens. So this is going to get rebuilt now. I'm sure when I'm done with it, it will work like the day it rolled off the assembly line sometime in April of 1972. So flashback to then. Anyway, I just thought I would do a quick video about this, because you really need to think about the fact that it's 50 years old. See ya. Hi, I'm back. You probably thought this video was over. I thought it was going to be over, but it's not. So yesterday, after I recorded the part of the video you just saw, I got to work on the customer's N256162 to rebuild it to get rid of the ever-present background hum. If you paid close attention to the first part of this video, you will know that I am always very skeptical of units that are reportedly being new old stock, brand new, never installed, all that nonsense, because that's not always the case. After I rebuilt it, there's all the parts, hooked it back up, connected a speaker to it, an antenna, did the usual thing, turned it on, came on, played, sounded good, no more background hum. I thought I was almost done. After just a couple of minutes, I noticed that the aluminum heatsink, which is down in here, I think you can see the blue tape, was really hot. And the sound level started to suddenly drop way down and become somewhat distorted. I think this unit has a failing amplifier, and that's what we're going to test and show today. Is the failing amplifier the original problem from when the set was new in 1972, and that's why maybe it was installed for 10 minutes and then it was taken out because it was failing and it never ended up going back to NuTone and it sat on some distributor's shelf forever? Maybe. Could it be because it sat on a shelf for 50 years and it developed problems on its own? That's a possibility also. There is no real way to know exactly what transpired over the past 50 years, but it does have a problem. So here's the setup. I have it connected to the normal transformer power right up here that you can't really see. Nothing is connected to it. There's no antenna connected to it. There's no speaker connected to it. It's on the phono input. Would be like an auxiliary input, so there's no signal from the radio tuners going into the amplifier at all. It's just basically as simple of a setup as you possibly can have. It's going to have power, the light bulbs are going to come on, and what we have here is we have my X-Tech EX330 with the temperature probe connected to it. I have it set to Fahrenheit for all you folks that don't like Celsius. I have the probe taped to the aluminum heatsink down here underneath the blue tape, so it's easy to see. And I have my trusty XKO timer, and we're going to power it up and we're going to turn on the timer and we're going to see how long it takes for it to actually overheat. So let's do this, and we'll go ready, set, go. Lights are on. We're at 67 degrees right now. It's fluctuating a little bit between 66 and 67. Now it's 67, 68. We're at 12 seconds. Not very long yet, but give it a little bit of time. We're up to 69. The heatsink down here that the probe is attached to is the heatsink that the two output power transistors are connected to make sure they don't overheat and burn up. And almost any kind of amplifier output transistors will be connected to a heatsink in some fashion or another. Sometimes it's a dedicated one like this. This is actually then connected to the overall metal chassis of the unit, so there's a lot of heat dissipation available. We're at 52 seconds and we're up to 84 degrees, 85 degrees. It's going up pretty fast. So we'll just wait and see what happens, because it went from, because I turned it off yesterday, we're up to 90 degrees. I turned it off yesterday, let it sit for about a half an hour, and it cooled all the way back down to the ambient temperature in the shop, which was mid 60s, something like that. We're up to 96 degrees already, and turned it back on, and it didn't take very long at all to go from, because I did the finger test. The finger test is you put your finger on it, and it was cold because it's aluminum and the power was shut off, so it's at room temperature and it draws heat away from your finger. We're up to 102 degrees now. It's been a minute 45, and it didn't take very long for it to go from stone cold to very slightly warm to the touch to, oh my God, it's burning hot. Once this gets up to about 125, 30 degrees, it starts to get uncomfortably hot if your fingers are on it. I'm touching it from the back here. It's now more than slightly warm to the touch. And temperature is going up. We're up to 112, 13. So coming up on 2.5 minutes, 115, and if we watch carefully, 116, so it's at 36 seconds, 117. So it's going up about 1 degree every 4 seconds right now. We're at 120, almost at 120. And now, if I put my fingers, I have 3 fingers underneath pushing up on it. It's uncomfortably hot. Like, you got to pull your fingers away because we're approaching 125 degrees. For those of you who like Celsius, we're at 49, almost 50 degrees Celsius. Now we're at 123, going to be 124, 125, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, about every 4 seconds it goes up 1 degree. So we're going to let it go up to 135, which is pretty much it's getting into the blazing hot category. It's really hot now. And one of the things that happens, semiconductors like diodes and transistors are heat sensitive devices. And so as it heats up, it's going to affect, that's as long as I can keep my finger on it. So watch this. I'm going to touch it on the next second. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's about as long as I can keep my finger on it. That's how hot it is. We're up to 132. We got 3 more degrees to go. Then I'm going to shut it off, because we don't want the magic smoke to come out. 33, we're going to hold out, we're going to go to 135, 134, get ready, we're going to switch it off, 135, and off it goes. Should drop, it'll take longer to drop than it did to rise. So 136, because residual power in the system is being dissipated, and it's going to take a while to cool off because it now has to, the air around it has to absorb the heat from the heat sink, and it will slowly drop. As you can see now, we're at 133, 132. It's probably going to drop, it looks like 1 degree every 2 or 3 seconds or something like that. So, is this the problem that it had originally in 1972? I don't really know. Is it the problem that it has today? Absolutely, because you just saw it happen. It's something that I point out to people when they acquire things like this unit, that they think it's brand new and they think it's going to be good out of the box, put it in, 35 years later it'll still work and it'll be all great, but that's not necessarily the case. We're down to 119 already, so it's dropping pretty fast. So my job now is, I'm going to fix it. I guess at the end, I'll be back. As you can see, it now works. So it's been running for, if we look at the timer, 16 minutes and 23 seconds, and it's been at a very steady, sorry about the glare, see if we can get it so you can actually see it. It's been running at 79 degrees Fahrenheit since I powered it up almost 17 minutes ago. No sign of any kind of overheating that we had before. Oh, sorry for the handheld thing, but it's just easier right now as I try to get this thing back together and get it done. So we'll move all these capacitors out of the way, and that one, and what we have left is a whole bunch of resistors. There are about, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12, something like that, that are so incredibly out of spec that it's not even funny. And then there are some diodes, those are diodes from the power supply, that I decided to change because they appear to be somewhat leaky. But the resistors were the biggest problem. I believe what probably happened to these are all what are called carbon composition resistors. They have these little epoxy bodies with the leads that go in at either end. And what tends to happen to these as they get older, the epoxy breaks down and moisture gets into the inside of the epoxy body, and it affects the carbon composition material that makes up the resistor. Some of these were easily 50-60% out of spec, some high, some low, not good at all. So they were all replaced with new resistors, no carbon comps in this shop, all carbon film because they're much more stable, and lower noise. And lower noise means that these tend, as they get older, they can get somewhat crackly sounding, especially in amplifiers, and that's not really desirable. So right now, how long are we at now? We're at almost 19 minutes. We're running, oh, it went up a degree, it's 80, oh no, 79. It's right on the edge of 79 and 80 degrees. And if you remember correctly, when we were doing the test before, I think we let it get up to, what, 135 degrees or something like that, and it was going up 1 degree like every 4 seconds. So now, stable, plays well. Turn it back up, see what kind of music we have now. That's all we can play. Anyway. As you can see, now it works great. And if you look really carefully over here, we got 80 degrees Fahrenheit. This has been running on the workbench after I put it all back together for the last hour and a half, 2 hours, something like that, I think. It seems to work fine. Intercom works correctly in all of its avocado glory. It was a good repair, some surprises. I guess the moral of this is be skeptical when you buy something like this, because the people who are selling it oftentimes really have no idea of what they really have, and they just take it on face value that, oh, it's new, so it's got to be perfect, and that isn't always the case. I hope you found this interesting, and perhaps for someone it will be helpful. If it is, give it a thumbs up on YouTube because that helps us just a little bit. There'll be a banner right here that shows you how to subscribe. Go to our YouTube homepage, click on the bell, and when you click on the bell, click on it to receive all notifications, and every time we post a new video, you'll get a notification and you can watch it. That's all for today. See you on the next video.